Good evening. Another opportunity to talk about Tian-Do, the UFO two witnesses from the physical evolutionary level above human that I do every Sunday and Wednesday, 9 o'clock to 11 p.m. on Eastern Time. On radio at Sawyer at blogtalkradio.com/Sawyer, Sawyer, and also broadcasting on USstream.tv channel heaven-s-gate-cast, Heaven's Gate Cast. And my blog, for anybody that wants to see what I write about, which is a lot of the same material that I talk about, is at sawyerhg.wordpress.com. My name is Sawyer, if you don't know that by now. And for email, for the quickest contact with me, it's sawyerhg, as in Heaven's Gate, at yahoo.com. And for the sake of the people that come into this broadcast on the TV, they may or may not get sound on the broadcast. And right now it's not even coming through. So I'm not even going to pay attention to that. But I'm recording this onto my local drive, and then I upload it to YouTube. And my channel name on YouTube is 3SPM, the digit 3, followed by S as in Sam, P as in people, M as in movement, or S as in stone people's movement. It was just like Third Stone from the Sun from Jimi Hendrix, talking about like this is the Earth, is basically a rock flying through space. But quite a sophisticated rock. Not like those unsophisticated comets that are just leftovers from the universe's development. And I'm saying that sarcastically because nothing is left over. Except you have to recognize that everything was created to actually recognize that there's nothing left over. Everything can be potentially used. So, with that said, what I wanted to actually talk about tonight, and we'll see how far I get with it because I frequently get off the track. You're breaking up. So my audio is breaking up. Is that what you're saying, Kitty? On the because I might be able to boost my let me see if I can fix that before we get going here, since the audio is very important. Let's see. I always get confused now about what I'm going to do for this. Go over to here. Acoustic echo cancellation, I've got that on. Recording volume, I've got it to 20 dBs. Maybe if I reduce that a little bit. I don't know, is that better? Can you hear me now? Is it any better? Yes, your audio is breaking up. I got a message, another message from US Stream chat room. That tells me that at least the U.S. stream people can hear me. I don't know if you can see me over there because I turned off my broadcast TV channel so that I could reduce the bandwidth I was needing from my computer. Anyway, so I'm going to do a quick audio check on my microphone here to see if there's something wrong with it. I'm doing a test right now. Test, test, test. Seems to be okay on my end with my microphone. So I'm not sure what's going on, but I'll test. I'm testing right now. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. Test. I'm testing right now. 1, 2, 3. It's not breaking up on my end. My audio is very clear. Yes, now it is good. Okay. So I'm getting the indication from my U.S. stream chat room that I guess is probably my friend Diode. I don't know for sure, but it doesn't matter. That the audio is good there. Do we have a video signal in the U.S. stream, just for my curiosity? And Kitty over there in the chat room on Blog Talk Radio, do we have is the audio better now there? Because it's okay on the U.S. stream. All right, well, I'm going to go on with assuming that it's okay, and if it's not, then it'll be on the broadcast that I'll be posting on my 3SPM channel. But until then, I'm going to, oh yes, that's right, I was going to bring up something else here. One more second, I still wasn't ready 100% here. There's one other thing, and we want this. So now we should be able to change scenes, so we can get that TV up there, and change scenes again. Get that one there. Okay, good. That's good. So while I'm at it, I just put my computer on Revelations. I'm trying to change the wrong thing here. Chapter 11. I'm going down to, I'm going to do a real quick summary here, and I'm not going to go into any detail because I've gone through this before. But what's taking place in Revelation chapter 11, it's the stage during the sixth trumpet sounding, which the other trumpets had taken place already, and the fifth trumpet, for the background, is when the bottomless pit was opened up, where the Luciferian space aliens were let out. That happened in the 40s and 50s, the 1940s and 50s. And also that's when the next level spacecraft crashed some of those spacecrafts from those space aliens. That the space aliens that they gave the choice to actually crash those crafts to were the ones that chose to come back and have an overcoming experience with the incarnate older member that was planned to incarnate in the 70s. So that's what the UFO crashes were, most of them, in the 40s and 50s. That was them sacrificing the existing physical bodies they had in order to qualify to be in the God astronaut training program to graduate into the level above human, which is the same as the kingdom of God, the kingdom in the heavens, the literal heavens. It's a many-membered kingdom, and they have physical bodies, and that's why Jesus took his physical body with him. That's why he proved to his disciples that he was physical. Anyway, and so that took place in the 40s and 50s. and they were depicted, the space aliens then at that time were depicted as being flying locusts, like insects, because they flew and they actually had a stinger in their tail, basically because they were able to abduct humans by injecting them with whatever it was, a laser beam or a laser light, or like a hypnotist kind of does, basically mesmerizing humans so they could bring them on their ships in order to extract DNA from them, sperm and egg, for their hybridization programs. Because the space aliens, once they got out of their underground hiding places that the next level opened up, they wanted to get on with their program of trying to produce new vehicles for them to move into, because their vehicles were dying. As also was said by the space aliens that came from other planets, when they said their planet was dying, and so they were here looking for a solution to that. And the next level let them come here through a wormhole, or one or more, that was a one-way wormhole, so they couldn't go back. I've kind of deduced some of that, although T and Do, they provided all the clues to what I'm saying. They didn't go into any details hardly about that at all. But with that and prophecy and current events and all the records in the last 60 years of things that have happened, not even 60 years, actually the last 2,000 years actually, that has happened with, even more than that, the last 6,000 years, with clouds of light and whirlwinds of fire, and that took individuals into the, like Elijah was taken into a whirlwind with a witness, and Enoch was witnessed to be taken, and Moses was taken according to T and Do, although there's no real documentary evidence of it. But they feel like he was also taken. The only documentation evidence that Moses was taken was when Jesus took his 3 disciples up the Transfiguration Mountain. It's called the Transfiguration Mountain. It was called Mount Nebo at the time. And they were met by 2 individuals that were in bright white raiment. Their clothing was bright white on that mountain, that were obviously not humans. And they were spoken to as well from space, not by those 2 individuals. And the 3 of them heard it, and they thought that those 2 individuals were Moses and Elijah. So at first I thought that since Jesus didn't respond to that claim in any particular way, except to not tell anybody about what they experienced up on that mountain, which, by the way, that's where Jesus received the instruction to lay down his life, which was a form of suicide for Jesus. Actually, it was like a kamikaze pilot, basically, giving his life for his family, for his older member. He was doing it for his older member, and of course that was for the sheep, to demonstrate that he was going to overcome the physical death of his body, so that they would know that when they gave their physical lives, they would also be overcoming their physical death, because they will still be living in the soul body that will be viable once it is brought through the birth canal, which takes place in the 3rd trimester through T and Do's efforts, which just took place in 1997 by the Heaven's Gate group when they laid down their lives. So anyway, so on the Transfiguration Mount, what the disciples said, they told Jesus that they wanted to make a tabernacle, which was a tent basically, or a little monument, in dedication to who they thought were Moses and Elijah. And so as a result of that, Jesus didn't comment to it, but it made me wonder whether that was the evidence that T and Do had, that Moses actually was taken in his physical body. Because if the disciples recognized this individual as Moses, they must have had something in their head that told them that. Now, it didn't really have to be that they looked like Moses and looked like Elijah, because all the next level members would have to do would be appear there, and the fact that their minds were from the next level, as the minds from Elijah and Moses were from the next level, that took over those physical bodies that were named Elijah and Moses. And basically, since they knew that they were members of the next level, they could have easily transmitted that to those disciples, so that those disciples would receive that in thought form, and they would identify them as being Moses and Elijah. Now, the other way to look at it is that they could have actually been the same physical vehicles that were taken into the spacecraft, that Moses and Elijah were taken into the spacecrafts. And so they might have looked enough similar to where, they had the same customary dress, or, that they had in the Middle East at that time, so that they thought that's who it was, with the thinking, of course, that would have been transmitted through thoughts, because there were no words spoken in the documentation saying that they were Moses and Elijah. The disciples just thought that. So the next level could have actually, put those vehicles on ice, so to speak, to keep them in a healthy condition, to where they might want to use them again for a circumstance like that. And they could have done the same thing with the body that was named Jesus. And that body could be brought back again too if the next level chose to, although I don't think they really have a reason to do that this time. Where at that time they had more of a reason to do it, because they were trying to prove to the disciples that they were physical beings. That's the whole point of Jesus taking his physical body and being lifted into that spacecraft with his physical body, that he told them was not a spirit. And he let them touch him so that they could feel the scars that he still had, even though they couldn't recognize him as the same Jesus that they knew, because he had gone through a type of metamorphosis to where a part of his body changed. And so it didn't look exactly the same. But apparently the next level allowed that body to look enough to still have the scars, so that they could prove to the disciples that they were still a physical being that was going onto that spacecraft, that was cloaked in the clouds, that was depicted in Acts, the chapter of the book of Acts. So that's got distracted there for a second, but so what I was getting at is that it's not necessary for that. It wasn't necessary for that to take place again for the Revelations 11:2 witnesses, even though it says in the prophecies that they will be killed and then they will resurrect and then ascend into heaven. Okay, I'm going to read where it says that for everybody on the, which is part of the new translation that I have. Let's see. And after 3 days and a half, the Spirit of life from God entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, Come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. Okay, ascended up to heaven in a cloud. Understandably, the translators of this, the people that did this happens to be a King James version, but most of the translators say the same thing. I've seen probably a couple dozen translations, because they're all over the internet, and they all say essentially the same thing, because they don't know how else to think about it. And that's understandable. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't have known how to think about it either, except that I had all that prepping by my experience with Tiendo, of knowing that they were the return of the two witnesses that were prophesied, and knowing all that, and then looking back on it, and then deciphering every word until I could figure it out. But it still took me forever to actually recognize the full breadth of the truth within those words. So it's not anybody is blamed. And many Christians actually say that. Many Christian writers and theologians say that it's not possible to understand, to be able to decipher the Revelations 11 prophecies until Jesus comes back and reveals them. And that's what I'm saying, exactly what happened, because the same soul that was named Jesus 2,000 years ago did come back, but he came back in a new vehicle, a new physical body. Tiendo called them vehicles, because to the next level, they are like suits of clothing. They are, but they are valuable suits of clothing. They don't take them for granted, and they treat them very well. So, and they don't change clothing as often as humans change clothing. And they have different clothing for different tasks. If, like a human has a different suit that they wear if they go under the sea, and they have a different suit that they wear if they go into outer space or if they go into a nuclear reactor. It's the same kind of thing, but the next level does it with a biological suit of clothing. They grow for that purpose, for whatever purpose they need it for. And we can get into that in a future point. But so I lost something I wanted to say there. I need to get some water because I'm going to dry myself out here. So, like speaking of this prophecy, I know I kind of dropped some things, and I'll come back to it. But yeah, the thing I was talking about was that it says in Revelations 10 that that John was being revealed some things too, but it was being shut up. He was told to not write about it yet. The things he was saying, and that it would be revealed during the time period of I'll go right to it, actually. During the time period of the seventh angel with trumpet, the seventh angel sounding, which is in Revelations 10. It says, now the seven thunders in Revelations 10:4 are the 7 times that Tiendo and crew went public. And that was the first time was in 1975 when they went public with what they were called Bow and Peep, and that extended for many years. It was even being talked about. It was published in all the newspapers in the United States, and all the. I can be relatively sure that all is not an exaggeration. The New York Times covered it with the magazine section with Tiendo on the front cover of the magazine section. That was, I believe, internationally circulated. Time magazine covered it. Newsweek did a big spread several times on Bow and Peep, and the Pied Pipers. Books were written. A movie was made with John Forsythe playing Doe, which was called Mysterious 2, and it was a terrible movie, and it was so inaccurate, it was ridiculous. They were wearing robes. They looked like, like Rael looks with his long white robe, and Tiendo never had robes. They never looked religious. They never looked spiritual. They were plain Jane. They didn't get up there and preach and, throw up their arms and walk around and prance around the stage like evangelists do, and and yell at people and stuff like that, and tell them how they should live and all that baloney. They didn't do any of that. They just sat there and said, actually, they were less emphatic than I am. I don't know how to be not emphatic because it takes this much energy for me to speak about this information, because it is very important and it is significant, and so it takes a lot of energy to put that across. But anyway, I can't explain why I have to kind of raise my voice to get this information out. It's just the nature of this vehicle, I guess, that I have. But in any case, so the second thunder was the Beyond Human series, which was a series of videotapes that Tian-Do put out. Not Tian-Do, because he left by then. Do was on those videotapes, but Do never gave another meeting, with face-to-face public meeting with anybody of the public. But he was on those 12 hours of those tapes, and they're available in different places on YouTube. And I think Diode's been playing them on this channel, on the TV U.S. stream, on this Heaven's Gate Cast channel. And they're actually, the transcripts are downloadable from the heavensgate.com website that is being run by two former students that you can download the text for free, or you can buy the book from them. I have nothing to do with any of that. I don't sell anything. But they did publish those books, and they put out the money for it, so they deserve to be compensated for the books that they're mailing to people. So anyway, but we're not recruiting, just so you know. I'm going to put that into this right now. There's no followers. There's no desire for anybody to believe in this. There's no interest in selling stuff, and there's no. I don't care about any revenue sharing on any of these websites. I could care less about any of that, and there's so few people actually come to these websites and these broadcasts that I would never make a dime on doing it. So none of that, even though I've been accused of doing that, there's nothing further from the truth that anything's happening like that. There's no need for any of that. There's no need for a new group. There are no older members running around. I'm not the teacher. I am I'm a messenger bringing the information that I received and that I've deciphered from the previous records to you, so that you can decide whether you want to actually start a relationship with Do. Which will be in a relationship, will be in your prayers, in your silence, in your privacy, not for anybody else to know about, unless you want to tell them. That's your business. But you don't need to tell me, and you don't need to tell anybody else. It's like Jesus said, go into your closet and talk to your Heavenly Father. Don't do it out on the street where you can be seen by others, and you can get the reward that you get by appearing holy, which which happens throughout the world with all the people that do their prayers out in public. It's there's nothing wrong with praying for somebody else. Jesus said that was good too, and he prayed out loud at times, but he also said that he was only doing it to show his disciples that he was doing it, and show the disciples what he was saying, so that they could get an idea of what prayer was. He wasn't doing it. He didn't make it into a routine. And that's why he said, don't make it into a vain repetition. Yet what do you see in all the religions? In the Catholic Church, big time, you see this vain, repetitious, reciting of these words that people don't even know what they mean. Our Father who art in heaven. Yeah, the Father who's in the heavens. That's outer space, the heavens. Let's get real. It's in the sky. It's the elevated areas above us. I'm not going to go through the whole Lord's Prayer, but I have in the past, and It wasn't, the bread was the bread from heaven, the substance of the information from heaven. That's what we're thankful for. Jesus said that we don't need to worry about what we put in our mouths, or where we're going to get our food. Because if we're putting our attention to the next level, then they will see to it that we're provided for. So, but if we're not giving our attention to the next level, yes, then we need to fend for ourselves. And it doesn't mean that everything's going to be given to us on a platter. We still need to work. There's nothing wrong with work for our sustenance, but we don't need to worry about it. We don't need to do what people are doing all around the planet right now, preparing for the end of the world by building underground bunkers and stocking them full of all these these prepared meals. Like that's going to really do much for for the length of time that they're going to be underground. It's going to be nothing. It's going to be a pittance of life. And can you imagine what it's going to be like living underground with the kind of people that are going to be going underground, all the rich people that can afford to buy their ticket into those underground facilities? Because those facilities are being prepared now as we speak, big time. That's where all the money's going. That's being confiscated. That's, when they got the bank, J.P. Morgan, to just pay that big fine of billions of dollars. You think J.P. Morgan was paying that fine because they were prosecuted? No, the prosecution was a front in order to get that money to actually pay for all the things that needed to happen in all the underground bases all around the United States that are being created for the rich and famous that can afford it, that can afford to buy their little ticket on their Learjets and their to go to their. That's why these underground bases are being built underneath the earth. To a large degree, like in the Denver airport, away from everything, and by airports. Like I said, there's a big project in Pittsburgh that I'm relatively sure is underground facility, and that's why they're building an underground tunnel in Pittsburgh to go from the downtown banking district, where all the rich people end up going, or where the TV producers and everybody, all those people go in the downtown, where the underground tunnel that they were building that was headed in the direction of the Pittsburgh airport that was being built, the new one. So these things aren't being done because there's that much more traffic in Pittsburgh. No, these things are being done because they know a lot of stuff is coming down. Now, Jesus said, when you see the abomination that brings desolation, then go to the mountains. And so I would suggest that if you're not in a mountainous area, that you start thinking about being in a mountainous area. And I suspect this is a little bit of an update, but that BP Earthwatch, when he was talking about how Comet Ison, the trajectory that he said was going to be followed, I guess I can show you my silly face here for a little bit. When BP Earthwatch said that the trajectory that would be followed of the Comet Ison over the Earth, which I don't know if that's happened yet. It was supposed to happen in December, but I haven't heard that it actually took place yet. But was going to spread its whatever was trailing behind it, because it showed that it was not just one object anymore after it came out of the sun, which of course nobody's talking about in NASA. The fact that it survived the sun, close the perihelion with the sun. And there's a lot of people that think it's dead. But fortunately, BP Earthwatch doesn't believe everything he's told. Thank goodness for that. So he was able to show us that it was still very much alive. and it appears to have another object following behind it that looks as big as a planet. In any case, I'm not going to get into that, but the path of that so-called debris, which may not be debris, it may be actually an armada of spacecrafts. But it also may have a certain amount of debris with it, because there may be a raining down of a certain amount of meteors that are going to send a very clear message to a part of the planet. I believe that is in the works in the prophecies in the book of Revelations, and I'm going to talk about that at a future date. But I don't think it's a coincidence that what I believe is the seventh, the third woe, and basically the seventh angel with trumpet introduction was, like I said, previous broadcast, was the February 15th, which was the end of the 40 years from when Tiendo started it in Bernie on February 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. That's when they actually were awake enough to know that they had a task to do, that they were from outer space. They had a task to do that was a fulfillment of prophecy, and that they had were going to bring updates to the Bible. Those are the three pieces, big chunks of information that they had at that time from Bourne, Texas. Bernie, Texas. I'm not sure how to say it, but it's spelled B-O-U-R-N-E, as if they were born there. And 40 years later was February 15th of 2013, when that meteor went over that town in Russia. That was a phenomenal experience that people should go read about on WikiLeaks. Not WikiLeaks, Wikipedia, because it has a real thorough explanation now that time has passed and they've been able to figure out a lot of what happened. So I suggest going there. But also what took place at that point was also that asteroid that was like 17,000 miles from the Earth. It was within the orbit of the moon. That was the closest path of an object of that size that had been recorded in history, as far as I can tell. And that was a near miss. That was like shooting a message over the bow of the Earth, of the spaceship Earth. Okay? Because then that was also followed with, or simultaneous with that, were fireballs all over the planet. Major events that looked like meteors and fireballs in Japan, in Indonesia, in New Zealand, in Australia, I think in Ireland, I think in England maybe. There was one, I think. Not sure where else, but then California had a number of them, or one big one for sure. That was recorded and is also documented. Search on Wikipedia, search on fireballs, and you will start to see all the evidence that took place in late February and early March of that, okay, with that asteroid as well. Search on asteroids, and then you will see that asteroid depicted. And then search on comets, well, and you will see the comet Pan-STARRS that took place in early March that came to perihelion. They said March 10th, but it was visible to the naked eye, which made it a great comet, as late as March 20th and I think thereafter. So it was fully visible to the naked eye on some places on the planet. I'm not sure exactly where. I better check my chat rooms here. No audio or video on U.S. stream. Stick with Blog Talk. Oh, that's a bummer. I don't know what's going on with that. But I'm recording this anyway, so yeah. All right. It may have to do with the time of day. I better check my other chat room. Let's see, I got some stuff in my chat room here. Okay, I'm signing off. You keep cutting out. I hope it's recording. Well, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I always have problems, it seems like. But hopefully I'm recording this, and I'll broadcast it again. I'll separate the audio out, and I'll broadcast it again on both on my 3SPM station, and I'll put a link to it on my Blog Talk Radio channel. So sorry about that. I don't know what it is. It might be the time of day that we're broadcasting when I don't have as much bandwidth as I had the other day. But I'm going to go about that. I wanted to say that in addition to the Pan-STARRS comet that had an object photograph that I talked about in the last broadcast with it, that was flying in the front of it in its coma, where you would think that nothing could actually keep up with it, especially that was so small compared to the size of the comet. Although you don't know what's in the total inside of that comet, because just thinking that it's rock and ice and gas is kind of immature in my mind. So, to actually broadcast that and write about that as if we know. I mean, because the government, NASA tried to shoot the comet, and to see, they said to see what's inside of it, but I think that was really a test to see if they could change its course or break it up. Which was, they weren't not telling the truth, but wanting to see what's inside of it. But what they said is they wanted to see what's inside of it because it would give them evidence to the origin of the universe. Okay? Well, I guess everything could be evidence to the origin of the universe, so that's like saying nothing. That's doublespeak, which is a typical politician, broadcast from a typical public relations manager would put out. And if anybody can't see that, then they're blind. I'm sorry to say. But there's a lot of that going around. Of course, most of the UFO debunking is just that. And also the debunking of Jesus as being a real person that was from someplace else other than the earth is a bunch of debunking as well. That he didn't exist at all. It was another bunch of debunking. Or that he was just a good man. Or that he was like equivalent to the other ascended masters. It was a bunch of baloney. He was above and beyond all of them in the past, except those that also came from that kingdom. And he said that even the youngest member of the next level is older than, or is more experienced, or is wiser, or is greater, actually, is the word he used. He might have meant also larger in many ways, because their actual mind is actually larger. They actually have more energy. That's why you would see in a member of the next level, if they were in a human vehicle and they were giving out this information, you would see their energy coming away from their head. That's why they were depicted in not photographs, but in paintings in the old days as having an aura. That's where the idea of aura came from, because it's real. And some humans can see auras. And I believe T can see auras, because she told me that I looked green on 2 occasions, but didn't explain to me what she meant. I asked her what that meant, and she said, I don't know. She said, you just look green to me. And I realized later that when she said that to me, I was actually green with envy that I was not in the group of students that were having the most direct relationship with Tian Do. That was called Sat 3, as in Satellite 3. and which were simply the students that were given the task of doing some of the management of the day-to-day operations of the craft, whether it had to do with scheduling people to work in the neutral lab, which is what we called the kitchen, because everything was like formatted as if it was a spacecraft, but no paraphernalia of pictures or things like that to make it look like a spacecraft, but just the function of a spacecraft, because they were preparing us to actually function on a spacecraft. And so it was appropriate to adopt the lingo so our minds would be filled with that same thinking, that it's not spiritual thinking. Tiendo were removing us from our spiritual thinking, and especially me. I was thinking very spiritually even up until the days that I left. I was thinking about things in a spiritual way. And spirit is powerful, and it is spiritual because it has to do with mind. Mind and spirit are the same word, and mind and spirit are also synonymous with information. But if it's information from the next level, that means it's true information. It's real information, and that means it's Holy Spirit. It's whole spirit or Holy Spirit, which really means pure, not whole. I don't know. Maybe there's some links to the word whole in there, but I don't want to get mixed up with Whole Foods. There you go. You got a free advertisement, but. Which I don't think they're the best of the whole food, the companies, because they're gobbling up the mom and pop stores, and they're basically, anyway, I don't want to get into all that politics, but which see, I got into that. That's using my mind as opposed to using the next level mind that I have received. That is entirely everything Tiendo said and did, and everything Jesus said and did, and everything Moses said and did. Everything that is in those records came through human vehicles to us. Now, we have it in our genetic history because we are all part of the human tree that the next level designed and fed their information to over thousands of years. So and then when those souls come back to start for their next trimester in their birth experience, with Moses being the first trimester, Jesus being the second trimester, and Tiendo being the third trimester for the three trimester birth experience. They bring the updates, and the updates are no longer spiritual. And what I mean by spiritual then, they're not mysterious anymore. They're not etheric. They're not nebulous. They're not imaginative. Well, there is some imagination still, because we don't understand everything about the next level and what they do on those spacecrafts. Although Tiendo gave us clues, they do tasks. They do tasks of watcher tasks, which is like an observing task, which is an elementary task. And actually that's done by individuals that haven't yet graduated into the next level, which I've spoken about in the past, which the Luciferian fallen angel space aliens were among those. They were the ones that were not ready to graduate yet, but had proceeded in possibly had completed maybe a second trimester classroom, although maybe not. I don't know exactly. Although T said that the standards were going to be raised for getting into the next level, even to that degree. Um, uh, so they might have got in after a first trimester classroom, to where they were issued physical bodies because they dropped their human body, or their human body was changed in some way so that it could basically operate on a spacecraft, uh, um, and do a washer task, which is an elementary task that they can do without actually causing any harm to the garden and the souls and the human species that are growing on that garden and the geography or whatever. Because if they haven't graduated into the next level as adults, Doe said adultery was actually not becoming an adult in the next level. I was clinging to human ways and behaviors, which sexuality is one of those human behaviors and ways that that they were trying to teach us to regulate by having just one partner, one mate that we were committed to. That was part of the teaching, so that we would be able to break away from being constantly propagating the species, because in the next level they don't have that. They don't even have the plumbing for it. They don't have reproductive organs or digestive organs for the next level members. For the ones that are in between, they do have some facility to consume food. And I believe that's the kind of vehicle that Jesus had when he left. He had a vehicle that could consume food, just like the same kind of vehicle that Adam had, which was the same soul that was Jesus, according to T, that was being given that opportunity, and that actually, I guess, flunked that opportunity, but then returned as Enoch, and then passed that opportunity and was taken by the next level. T and Doe didn't talk about that, but putting all things together that they did talk about with Scripture, I suspect that's the case, but don't quote me on that as if T and Doe said it, because it's not important to our overcoming and our connection with Doe, but to whether that's true or not. But it kind of makes sense to me at this moment. Let me put it that way. And I don't feel any updates coming telling me that I need to change what I said. So, which I do get, and you will get too if you come this direction, and that's totally up to you. And the pace in which you come in this direction is totally up to you, and there's no limitations on that pace. But the task that we have is to disseminate the information that T and Doe left behind, and that's the task. And what we do in overcoming is part of that, but essentially we need to follow the steps that are given to us when they're given to us. And like there's been some people asking for a new classroom to start, and there's been requests to have me kind of be the resident, more experienced student, to share what I went through in the 19 years that I spent with T and Doe. But that would be totally out of place for me to do. I would be renegading to do that. I would be going against T and Doe's instruction, because their instruction to me is to disseminate the information. That's what they said in writing. In one of the documents, I need to memorize what the name of that document is, but it's actually a document that Junodi actually wrote, I believe. But Junodi was working as the right hand, as one of the right hands, because Doe had a number of right hand workers on his crew of those students that were with him to their departure date in March 22nd, 23rd, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th period of time that they were exiting their vehicles, and then they were ascending. And so the ascension here in Revelations 11, well, actually, the one thing I did want to go back to was that after the Pan-STARRS comet, there was a series of fireballs along the east coast of the United States. Now, but they weren't just fireballs. In fact, I have some video footage of one of them which just looked like, I wouldn't really be able to tell it to be any different than an airplane from the distance, with the lights, but it was moving away from the camera, sort of on an angle, sort of away from it, and it was very close to the ground, but it was, kind of towards the horizon, so it just looked like a dot of light, a bright dot of light from the video that I saw. And maybe I can post that video in case it's not available anymore, because a lot of times these things get taken down. But a lot of them are still available too. But but the get back my focus. But so it looked like, it could have been, that the video that I saw was a hoax. I don't know, but there were hundreds of reports that same night. And if you look at the chart, if you go to Wikipedia and you search through the chart that shows where all the calls came from, which only shows some of them, you will notice that I just realized I do want to keep this up too. You will notice that those points on the map resemble what where BP Earthwatch said the comet Ison was going to be strewing its whatever it had in its tail, in its follow-up, that is still supposed to come over the Earth, which I think comet Ison is doing something that nobody can actually predict right now. According to BP Earthwatch, that should have happened in December, but it still hasn't happened, and now we're coming into the end of January. We are at the end of January, so it's and he was projecting the timing of that based on how fast it was moving, according to the software he has that he's watching, that he was able to see Comet Ison, and it showed that there were a lot of objects associated with Comet Ison, because if they were strictly like shooting stars, like a meteor shower behind the back of what looked like the bigger object in the BP Earthwatch video that was posted on YouTube, that I think was named Hercules. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. That represents that planet that was supposedly leaked, that was following Ison, leaked by NASA people, potentially, which I don't know for sure if that's what happened, but looked about the size of Pluto, and Pluto had a relationship with Tiando, being a planet that was potentially a spacecraft. And anyway, but I'm just throwing all that in for the person in the chat room that came in there, although they just left the chat room, so maybe they don't care about it. But it doesn't hurt, because I've said all these things in previous broadcasts, But I can't go over all the details of each one of them, but I do try to touch the high points so that people might want to go to the old broadcast to see what I was talking about, or to go to BP Earthwatch and see what I was talking about, whatever. I'm not saying BP Earthwatch believes in Tian-Do at all. I don't know if he does or not, but I'm not saying everything he says about the end times is accurate either. I actually have corrected him on some of his YouTube videos, and he hasn't responded to me in response to what I felt were some corrections of interpretations of things. But that's not my business actually, whether he believes in what I say or not, or what Tian-Do say or not. It doesn't matter to me at all. I'm not saying it doesn't matter as a callous thing to say, like like the hell with you or anything like that. No, it's just not my business whether people believe or not. I'm not graded, or I'm not given stars in my crown based on how many people believe. This isn't recruiting believers like the Christians do, and like other people in other religions do. I guess all original religions actually do that to some degree, don't they? And all the cults did that as well, but Tian-Do's cult didn't do that. So Tian-Do's cult had a lot of unique characteristics. They had no children. There were no murders like the Jim Jones. There was no breaking the law like the Jim Jones was accused of. And that's why Congressman Ryan went down there and was murdered when he went down there. And there's no coercion, as you saw with the Jim Jones operation, and the same with the Solar Temple people. There's no children involved again, murders involved again. None of that with Tian-Do. Those are big, big factors when you're actually evaluating them, trying to put them on the same level, which they cannot be put on the same level except in very, very general ways that you can basically put governments on that same level, and all kinds of institutions and corporations on that same level, and and the same generalizations that you have with the way that cults are all put on the same level. So that's a lot of hogwash. That Tian-Do were the same because they were labeled that. Or like Do was a psychopath because he was labeled that, where he didn't demonstrate any psychopathic behavior, or whatever the other word is for that. Sociopath. He didn't display any sociopathic behavior either. He was not antisocial at all. If you look up his history, he was a musician. He was an opera singer for the Houston Opera. There's nothing. You can't claim that a sociopath becomes a sociopath overnight. I guess you can by talking about spirit possession, and in a sense that took place, but it was not spirit on the human level taking over of those physical vehicles. It was a next level mind coming in, because they talked about next level things, next level ways. They were talking about humans as mammals. And it's very true that humans are mammals. And so it was basically mammalian behavior that you were overcoming. They spoke about the kingdom of God not in a spiritual, mysterious sense, but they said it was an evolutionary level above human, where they had physical bodies that were grown on vines, the way space aliens and humans are trying to do right now in underground bases that they don't talk about. But they're trying to do the same thing with genetic engineering, trying to grow humans and clone humans. All that experimentation is taking place in underground bases, even though they say that they're not doing it. That's baloney. They don't tell us half of what they're doing. They don't even tell us a quarter of what they're doing. You got to be kidding. If Hitler was engaged in it 60 years ago, 70 years ago, believe me, it's going on now. in many places. But so I would suggest looking at that map where all those fireballs went over, because it does bring you over the going from like the Virginias to the Ohio Basin. I think it's called on the Ohio Basin, where there's been some signs of seismic activity as well. So I think it would be wise to think about leaving there. I think there's still time for people to start getting used to that idea of getting out of that area. I'm not saying that's the only area that's going to be affected. But I think that the next level was showing us in various ways where they're going to be doing the most. And there was recently a fireball actually over the Virginias that was very large. So the next level will continue to show humans where not to be. And I think we got a pretty good indication by the Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Sandy of the same places not to be. And I think Florida might be included in that. I may be wrong. I may be wrong about that. But it's interesting that it's about a third, okay? If you look at the Ohio Basin, if they put a line, I wonder how that would compare with the continent United States. And I'm not going to go there now but it did give me a pretty strong clue just now that that will help me in further deciphering of prophecy. Because I believe the area that was west of the Mississippi was approximately 2/3 of the continent. And that's where the next level came. That's where the New Jerusalem is. The New Babylon, I believe, is New York City. That's where the 9/11 attack happened, which was in Revelations 11. It was called an earthquake, which actually the definition of the word was shaking, a great shaking. And where they were depicted as laying down their lives was in Revelations 11:16, where it says, "And the 24 elders which sat before God on their seats," and that's talking in the past tense, sat. I looked that up to make sure that I wasn't just wanting it to be that way, because of where it comes in the order of things, which sat before God on their seats, which was literally the seats that were shown in the exit videos of Doe with students that were sitting in those white chairs. Those were the seats they had that this is talking about. And they fell upon their faces, which is a way of saying their faces are their human vehicles. And they fell upon them was saying that they, with their mind, defeated, put their vehicles down. They laid down their bodies, like Jesus talked about his disciples would also be doing. But they did it by preaching the next level, preaching what Jesus taught. And then because everybody hated Jesus and they hated what he taught and hated him and hated them for it as well, they all ended up getting bumped off. And that's how they laid down their bodies, by being willing to do that. And that's what we're actually facing now those that are disseminating the information from Tiendo, we're facing the same thing that the Jesus disciples were facing, which hasn't really begun yet, but as of the seventh angel with trumpets, which this broadcast is part of, we will experience the backlash that will probably result in the end of this vehicle that's talking now. But I've realized that we all have to go, and I choose to put my commitment to Tiendo as that being the way that I go. So with that said, we're going to skip over to, it said in Revelation 11:15, and the seventh angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord, and blah, blah, blah. I shouldn't say blah, 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 because I'm not trying to be disrespectful of the scripture, but I didn't really want to talk about that right now, that part. But it's saying that the seventh angel sounded after they ascended, is what I was pointing out. Because they ascended, which came after the second woe as well. And the second woe, I believe, I think the woes are comets. And I think the beginning of the seventh angel sounding was the National Geographic special that suggested that Tiendo were the second coming of Jesus. That was called Heaven's Gate, the final report, Heaven's Gate, that I was interviewed for and did a little bit of speaking on. But other than that, it was pretty much the same as previous broadcasts, except for that in several ways, in big ways, even in the trailer, I believe it suggested that this might have been the second coming, with a question mark. That was a big thing to say to the world, and millions of people watched National Geographics. So millions of Christians would have seen that. And so they were faced with it. And so this is what, for those that are given, more is required. But for those that aren't given, less is required. So if you never heard about Tiendo, doesn't mean that all is lost for you. Of course, if you're listening to this now, then you have heard of Tiendo. Whether you know who they are or not doesn't really matter. If you want to find out, then you'll go find out. And it's baby steps. It's belief is the first step, and belief is a big step. It's a very big step. And I'm not the one that decides, what the criteria is for belief and when. But in general, it's before you lose that vehicle, if you believe on Tiendo, the way people say you had to believe on Jesus, which was applicable for then, 2,000 years ago, but now that there's been new incarnations, doesn't apply to what Jesus said. You can't believe on Jesus and then not believe on Tiendo. It's impossible, because then you're not actually seeing the real Jesus. Because if you see the real Jesus, then you will, when you see what Tiendo said and did, you will then see Jesus in Tiendo. That's a fact. I know it's scary for that, to do that, when you've been taught for generations, been programmed to think that if anybody suggested that there was more, that the only one that could suggest that there's more is Jesus when he returns. But if we insist that the return is going to be strictly in the heavens, where he's going to stay in the heavens, then how was he going to speak plainly of the kingdom like he said he was going to do? It's because he was coming in two phases. The first phase was going to be incarnate. That's the phase we need to believe in order to recognize him when he comes as he really is in the heavens on a spacecraft that perhaps looks like a sun and that may be showing the face of the one that was the dough, showing the face of the vehicle that dough took, that Jesus took, because that's who it is. When you see in Revelation chapter 6, which I'm going to skip over to it, where it says that and I saw when 6:1, and I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder. One of the four beasts saying, "Come and see." Okay, and I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals. Now some Christians say that because this individual, John was depicting that he saw the Lamb, and the Lamb is the one that laid down his life for his sheep 2,000 years ago. So it's talking about the individual that performed the task of the Lamb and was occupying, took over the vehicle that was named Jesus, that was prepared for him from the birth of Jesus by depositing a soul into that little baby vehicle when it was born. The same way T and Do's vehicles were prepared, and many of T and Do's disciples were prepared in the same way, and perhaps many of you were prepared in the same way. Then it said, opened the seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder, where there's the seven thunders right there, which is the first time I actually saw that. The noise of thunder. No, the noise is probably the sound. I don't know if it's literally. Yeah, it's a sound. So why did they say noise? They got to put it on a level that makes it sound, like noisy, like it's like detrimental to the ears, where it actually means a sound, but it also means disclosure. So why didn't they say disclosure of thunder? Well, because they didn't think the thunder was actually a communication, and it actually means to roar. And here's where you have the roar of the lion, and Jesus was considered to be the Lion of Judah. See? So this is all depicted in the Old Testament as well. All the prophecies are fulfilled here, and they're all fulfilled by T and O as well. And so one of the four beasts, which isn't beast, it's really, the Greek zoon is a living being, not a beast. Beast is a therion. Therion is the Greek word, which has to do with a venomous animal, which is like a Luciferian space alien, is like a venomous animal, because when they bite you, they drag you into their camp with the poison. The poison is the deceit that they spread. They're called hissers. The serpent with Adam and Eve was a hisser. That's actually what they should have said there. They said, when the hisser came upon them. I mean, I'm not saying they should have said that, because it served its purpose to call him a serpent. because they probably do have a relationship with the reptilians, the serpent space aliens that were probably developed serpent characteristics by being in underground facilities for thousands of years, for 1,000 years. Surviving off of cannibalism or the blood of whatever animals they could get off the surface of the planet, or what they could raise in those underground bases, because they'd be propagating animals while they're in those underground bases, the way humans are doing right now, in the different various labs where they have all their lab animals. Well, they could raise them for the blood, like that priest from Africa talked about on the David Icke interview. The Shatawi, which are the reptilians that he said that abducted him. And they were living off of blood, and they used gold to smear all over their bodies so that they could promote healing, so they could live longer. Yeah. All these things have links. Why were the Egyptians why did they want gold so bad? Well, because the space aliens wanted them to get gold, because they could use it for their healing and other things. It was the most flexible metal that had strength and had various properties of healing and communication and a lot of things. But so what I was getting at with Revelation 6 is that the next verse, Revelation 6:2, says that, and I saw and behold a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. Now, none of these words are taken for granted. Should never be taken for granted, any of these words. We can, but it won't get us the correct understanding, the most realistic understanding. But people say that because this is saying, and I saw and behold a white horse, that white horse cannot be depicting the returned soul, Jesus, that is the one sitting on this white horse. Because they said that the Lamb was the one that's opening the seal. Well, why can't that be one and the same thing? That the Lamb is the same soul, no, and he's opening the seal, which is actually opening all that Daniel was told to seal up. I think in chapter 9 of Daniel or chapter 12 of Daniel, I get those mixed up. And that John was told to seal up too, which I believe John was probably, well, anyway, it was a task that was given to one of the disciples of Jesus, and to actually put these down in writing and have them be coordinated with what Daniel was given to put in writing, which was probably, which was done by the one that was called Michael, who there's quite a bit of evidence is the same soul that was Jesus and but was not incarnate. So he wasn't counted as one of the incarnate older members from the next level. That's why he was just called an archangel, which archangel actually means captain. And that's where you have Captain Stormfield of the Mark Twain story, that he was riding in the tail of the comet, Halley's. And that captain, that Texas is actually a Spanish word for the captain's quarters, the whole section of a Mississippi riverboat where the captain's quarters are. And Doe said that he was a captain, I don't know, and he called T an admiral. And he did that long before he had done the research into the Mark Twain story, the Samuel Clemens Mark Twain stories, in 1910. But I think Doe was the one that came and to deliver that information to Mark Twain, because to think in terms of being in the tail of a comet in 1910, which Edison actually filmed a little bit of with him at his home in Connecticut, is pretty extraordinary, right? When they barely had airplanes then, even though they had the pictures, I don't know if they had the pictures then of the 1500s of the individual sitting inside a comet going through the oil painting that was made by, forgot the name of the artist, with an F, I think, Faust, or I don't remember. But all these things are, and it's interesting that Texas, of course, being the captain's quarters, was where T and Doe vehicles were from and where they were born from, where they awakened and then left behind. And so there's all these correlations, and then Doe had this name, Applewhite, and T's name was Nettles, and Nettles has to do with a particular type of herb, a plant, that is called an artillery plant. It projects its seed away from itself. It shoots its seed away, the way the next level does when they spread their seed, like Jesus depicted in saying that in the kingdom of heaven they spread the seed, which is a lot different than the way other plants spread their seed by the insects and by the wind and by animals brushing up against them. And nettles also has a lot of healing properties. That all these correlations are planned by the next level. They go through all these details. Also, all the details of the time frames, which there are a number of Christians that have deciphered the time frames of 3.5 this and 7 this and 12 this, and which were all given by the next level for them to decipher. But it's actually a way that the next level has fun with humans. It's part of the next level humor to do that. But it's also providing for prophecy. It's not just fun, because it gives those of us that are trying to share this information interpretation that to the Christians that are prepared to consider this, that T and Doe were the return, ammunition for their own overcoming of the voices that would tell them that this is a bunch of baloney, this is a bunch of New Age baloney. If you believe it, then you're basically being pulled away from Jesus, and you're going to go to hell. Well, if you want to believe that, that's your choice. And T and Doe want you to have that choice. That's why they provide the choice. That's why they provide the Luciferian space aliens to become like a sparring partner, which each of the members that overcome the world are actually assigned a sparring partner, who is a Satan. Actually means an adversary, which is somebody that actually rejected the next level, rebelled against the next level, and is consciously, actively trying to steal souls away from souls on the human kingdom that were planted by the next level, away from the next level for their camp. And that actually even means humans with physical bodies that they want to bring on their spacecrafts because which they did, which was also all the contactee experiences were all about. Was trying to basically establish what we call diplomats or recruiters. That's what they really are, recruiters, looking for new members for their spacecraft because, don't forget, they keep on dying. They lose their vehicles. So if they can't grow vehicles fast enough, then they want to bring in individuals that will believe enough of what they know so that when they are in the discarnate world, which is where Lucifer is now, in the discarnate world, and the fallen angels are in the discarnate world. So the space aliens, they can go to those vehicles on board those spacecrafts and manipulate them, tell them what to do. And they will cooperate because those souls are a little more powerful than human souls that had not received much of the mind from the next level. So therefore, individuals that spend time with Tian-Do, that broke away, they're the biggest candidates for space aliens to try to steal away. And some of them, I believe, have been stolen away, as I've seen indicated by some of the writings that a few of them have put out, to where they say they are working, that they were in the Tian-Do classroom, and I'm not going to name names, but if they see this broadcast, they will know who they are. But it's not too late for them to actually throw that Luciferian space alien influence out of your body and away from your consciousness, and ask Tian-Do to help you to do that, and then get back with the program. It's not too late, and it doesn't benefit me to do that. So, and Tian-Do don't need you to do that because they filled their seats. But they do have an open door right now for individuals to be saved for a future overcoming classroom. So all those that show their allegiance to Tian-Do in the next few years, I don't know how many, before the option is taken away by the humans that will stop these broadcasts and stop, everything, and who knows what might take place after around 2017 in particular, and before that, potentially, or a little after that. I believe when those individuals lose their vehicles, however they lose them, they will be taken onto a spacecraft by the next level, kept in their quarters in one of the seven heavens, depending on how much they had grown before they gave their allegiance to Tian-Do, and then left their physical vehicle behind. Wow, there's so much So much ground to cover. I got to bug out my eyes because I get tired, I get worn out, and one eyelid starts to close. So I look even crazier than I do. So that's the only reason you'll see me put my eyes up like that. So now that picture is going to be taken, right, of me, and that's going to be what I see depicting the way I talk. So be it. Gives people the option, right, to believe what they want. But in this Revelation 6:2, it says that it was a white horse. Now, horse, according to Zechariah, is a human vehicle. I'm not going to go to that verse right now, but you can research it. I suggest anybody that's interested in this material, get yourself some kind of Bible software. It's free. You can download all kinds of things, or buy one cheap, or just use the one that comes with Strong's Concordance, which the online version is $8, and you get a whole slew of all kinds of Bible material and versions of the Bible for that. And it also comes with the Greek and Hebrew dictionaries. So you can become your own Bible scholar. No, you're not going to be as good of a scholar as those that know the Hebrew language and know the Greek language. But you know what? If you take a few primer courses on that, you will know about all you need to know, really. Because there's been plenty of people that have deciphered things and use everybody else's work as well when you're actually going through this, deciphering everything. And I'm posting everything I post that I'm talking about on my SawyerHG.wordpress.com website. So take that material and run with it. Understand it all. And even point out to me where there's things that I might not have seen, or I might look at a little differently. I'm willing to look at everything. In fact, I was going to start this broadcast with the fact that for a long time, I'm going to go back to Revelations 11. For a long time, I was misinterpreting a couple words in a very key verse. And that is Revelations 11:7, that many Christians use to say that it couldn't be Tiendo because they didn't physically die. And they didn't lay in the street for 3 days, 3.5 days, as if they were going to be counting the hours, right, of laying in the street. 3.5 had to do with a period of time that's related to 7, which is related to the way Tiendo did things, which is on my blog, SawyerHG.wordpress.com. You'll see spoken about in more detail. Actually, I haven't posted that part yet, but I will post it in the next few days. So 11:7 says, and when they have finished their testimony, which doesn't mean that they actually finished it, completed it. It's shall have has to do with they're in process of completing it. So the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit, which ascend is just rise or even climb out of, which indicates that they were in some kind of underground facility that they were allowed to climb out of. Maybe the next level opened it up with an earthquake or a volcanic reaction or eruption or a combination or a certain amount of flooding or underground drilling or who knows what way that they opened up that entrance to that underground facility where they knew the Luciferian space aliens were hiding for the last 1,000 years. And beast there is the other beast that I said was actually Therion, Therion, which means an animal, a wild animal, metaphorically a brutal, bestial man, a savage, ferocious, venomous beast. Any way you want to look at it. That's a human that doesn't have any more next level mind in them, or whatever next level mind they had in them, they corrupted, and so now is actually poison to anybody that they give it to by telling them or projecting it on them, or because what they do is they come to us. The space aliens come to us through the unseen world as spirits to the ones, but we have the power to fight them off if we ask Tiendo for help. If we don't know to ask Tiendo for help, then they basically overcome any human that they want to overcome. And that's why you see individuals doing these wild shooting rampages and simulating wars and torturing people and doing all kinds of things with inflicting chemical damage on people through the pharmaceuticals and through the fertilizers and genetic engineering and the vaccination programs that are I mean all these things have potential value in some contexts, but the way the humans do it, there's so many side effects that you can be expected to have that can even be deadly. It's really hypocrisy to be considering that they are a benefit to mankind. Humans are actually killing themselves by their own judgment, but by their own ways and behaviors. And the next level knows that, and that they allow them to do that, and so they're actually assisting in the weeding. The humans that are weeds are assisting in the elimination of their own kind, those with the same mindset, which would be all those that believe in them. That's what giving loyalty to the beast means. It means with your mind, you're giving the mark on the head is basically the mark that is your decision to give loyalty to the humans that teach all these non-next level ways, behaviors and ways. They kill people, they justify it. So if you're in the armed forces, you're working for the beast. I suggest you, well, I'm not suggesting anything. If you're working for a corporation that's all they care about is profits, and they don't care who they kill with their products, I think you're working for the beast. If you're in a religious organization that all you care about is how many more souls you can bring in, people you can bring into your fold, and you won't allow your people to look at anything alternative interpretation or translation, like the information I'm sharing now, well, then you're working for the beast. Well, I should say that's the beast on the mark on the hand is actually the word when you're in service to, which is part of it. And the mark on the head is just when you're in allegiance to, with your patriotism. And that you will go fight and even die for that beast. Die for your country is dying for the beast. The Luciferian space aliens, they are behind the beast. That's why it talks about them as coming up from the bottomless pit in Revelation chapter 9, verse 1. That's when they were released. But they went and then influenced all the humans in the human kingdom in all various ways by showing them that they were real and they had spacecrafts and flying circles around them and shooting some of them down and even letting somebody get shot down or so that they could look like a facsimile of the way the next level sent their crew to lay down their bodies in order to have a new lesson plan. That also had all its effect on right now so that people could see that the next level members were also physical because of how the Luciferians had made it into a spiritual existence to where you went to automatically after you died if you lived a good life and you believed on a Savior, which couldn't be further from the truth. That the individuals that lived during Jesus' time that didn't know Jesus, didn't meet him, didn't have a personal relationship with him, when they believed Jesus based on what the disciples told them about Jesus, and they believed, then they were saved. When they died, then they were taken, their spirit was taken, or their soul at that point, because they would have been given a soul to have that belief at all, and would have been taken and put in what Doe called put on ice, which wasn't, he didn't mean literally on ice, but he meant in a condition of being saved for future opportunity. Whether on ice also, for some, might have meant being given some service, like the Luciferian space aliens were given service when they were saved, because they had grown to be able to do more than just believe. So I didn't get to that word I was talking about in this verse. So the bottomless pit, it says here in Revelation 11:7. The bottomless pit is actually the deep. It also means the depths. It also means let me just bring it up here. It means pit by itself, but since, it's from the Greek word abyssos, or like abyss, and it is translated as abyss sometimes. The unbounded, bottomless is actually one of the words for it. Immeasurable depth, very deep gulf or chasm, which is the same thing as hell, because once you decide that the next level are not your older members, are not from an evolutionary level above human, that created the planets and created all of us as plants that could choose to become members of the next level by going with the last incarnate members program. As soon as we turn from that and then work against them, we have sealed our fate by our own belief and our own choice. And that is a condition of hell. And that also, we then actually, those who do that, they also lose whatever they had. Like Jesus said, those that received and didn't use it also had what they received taken away from them. So they don't have the capacity anymore to actually believe in the next level. Now they think the next level are simply another space alien group like they originated at, where they originated from. And I'm talking about the space aliens now that are the descendants of the Luciferian space aliens when they propagated with human mortals. And I'm also talking about the space aliens that were allowed to come from other planets. But in that case, they also came from a planet where there were equivalent Luciferian space aliens. And so that's why they are also considered to be Luciferian space aliens. Because that word comes to mean actually a rebel from the kingdom of God that is working against the kingdom of God. So that's why blasphemy, speaking against the information from the kingdom of God, is a non-forgivable sin. It's not forgivable because you've done it to yourself. You've basically established the programming that had to be in place for you to start preaching against that information as being true. So that's why it was permissible to actually speak against Jesus. You could actually say, I don't agree with Jesus. I don't believe he is who he says he is. But you can be forgiven that because you could change. Because belief can change. But you're not going to be forgiven if you say that there is no kingdom of God. There is no graduation of souls to the kingdom of God. The human kingdom is all there is. That's going against the next level when you're making statements that are that direct and that broad. Or if you say that the path to the kingdom of God is to believe on Jesus and believe that he gave his blood so that you wouldn't have to, so that you could reap the reward. He did it for you. When he didn't do it for you in the sense that you didn't have to do it, he did it for you in the sense that he was demonstrating what you would have to also do. That's how he did it for you. The next, and it says, now I'm getting to those words with 6 minutes left on my broadcast. And bottomless pit shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. Shall overcome them and kill them. Well, overcome was the word that puzzled me, and I've actually recognized that that word actually one of the words that was given for that word was, which is not listed here, but is listed in Strong's Concordance, is subdue. And it's interesting that it also means overcome, prevail, conquer, get victory over, which all those apply, but that's where they were shot down by the press. That the war against them was the war of getting the media and the investigators and the police to find out who the mysterious two were that gave the meeting in Walport, Oregon, that I joined from, that caused 20 individuals to leave from Walport, Oregon, leave their lives behind, and go to meet T&O at the location that they were given, which ended up being at Grand Junction, near Grand Junction, Colorado, at the National Monument there. That's where I met T&O for the first time. I saw them for the first time at the Walport meeting. I spoke to them. I sat in front of a private meeting for the first time there, and I spoke to Doe privately for the first time there as well. And spoke to T for the first time at another location. But then I was with them for 19 years after that, so I had many occasions where I spoke to Doe and T privately, and T and Doe privately, and of course in groups. Most of it was in groups. We had very little private consultation, but we had a lot of small groups and large groups, and many, probably over 300 meetings over those 19 years that were each about an hour, hour and a half long. Anyway, so, which are available, by the way. Some of those are. About half of them are available, maybe less than that. So if anybody wants, they're on forshare.com. I think you can download them one at a time for free. But if you want them all, I think you have to pay something for them. Carlin, who was in the group also, he's posted those there. And I don't think he gets any of the little bit of money for those. He posted them when it was free to download them. But then they changed it. A lot of these websites are doing that, right? So then where it says, shall overcome them in Revelations 11:7 and kill them, kill actually is not the correct interpretation either. It actually has to do with apokataino, which apo is separate, cease, complete, take away from, and then kataino appears to be death. So it's saying separate from death. Not, or clearer is separate by death is what the beast is going to do to them. Separate them, separate by them, by death. And then the word here is them is also translated as themselves. So that means that they're going to use, that's basically depicting them laying down their lives by taking it upon themselves to put their bodies to sleep, permanent sleep, as they did in the peaceful way that they did it. And with that said, the rest of the words that came after that said dead bodies, there's no word there. It's rune that should be there. Not even bodies. If you actually look at bodies, it's rune. And their rune, and then shall lie wasn't even in the original transcripts, the manuscripts. So the rune is in the street, which is the wide plat, which is like the square, which is basically where people from kindred and tongues and nations can see them, means that the only way that could happen is if it's in the United States melting pot and or on the media for that United States melting pot. That's how all those different people can see this, and they did. So with that said, I think we've covered a lot of material. I hope this broadcast wasn't in vain because of the way I was having technical problems again. But if not, if it was, hopefully my video that I made has come out okay. So good night, and thank you for T and Doe.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.